My wife called me while I was on a business trip and said, "James, I'm leaving you for someone better. I deserve more than you can give me." After 12 years of marriage, that was how she ended it. My name's James Carter, 38 years. Old, a real estate agent based in Savannah, Georgia. I'd spent over a decade building a life with my wife, Rachel, supporting her dreams, and growing my career to provide for us. But that Wednesday evening, while I was in Charleston pitching to a client, she left me for my biggest rival, taking $150,000 from our joint account to start a new life with him. I stayed calm, gripped the phone, and said, "We'll see who deserves better." She laughed, thinking she'd won. She didn't know I had a witness to her betrayal. Rachel and I met in 2012 at a real estate conference in Atlanta. I was 25, just starting out, and she was 24, a part-time photographer with a knack for staging homes. We hit it off over drinks, bonding over our love for Savannah's historic charm. We married a year later, bought a fixer-upper near Forsyth Park, and turned it into our dream home. I focused on my career, specializing in historic properties, while Rachel took on freelance photography gigs. We saved diligently, building a nest egg of $150,000 for a future family or a dream vacation. I thought we were solid, a team with shared goals. Things changed about a year ago. Rachel started pulling away, spending more time out with friends I didn't know. She'd come home late, her phone buzzing with messages she'd hide from me, always with excuses. "I'm working on a big project," she'd say, or "I met a new client who loves my work." I noticed her growing interest in my rival, David Wells, a flashy real estate agent who'd been undercutting me for years. David had a reputation in Savannah, smooth-talking, always throwing lavish parties, but I'd heard rumors of shady deals, clients losing money. Rachel started mentioning him more, saying he'd offered to showcase her photos at his events. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her. 6 months ago, I started paying attention. David's name came up too often, and Rachel's excuses didn't add up. I confided in my best friend Tom, a contractor who worked with me on renovations. "I think Rachel's hiding something," I told him over coffee. "She's been distant, always talking about David Wells." Tom frowned. "I've seen her at his office a few times," he admitted. "I didn't want to worry you, but it looked cozy." I thanked him for his honesty, my gut twisting. I didn't confront her. I wasn't sure yet, and I needed proof. I asked Tom to keep an eye out, let me know if he saw anything else. He agreed, promising to be discreet. Last week, I left for Charleston to pitch a historic estate to a wealthy client. It was a big deal, a potential 6-figure commission, and I'd be gone for 3 days. Rachel seemed off when I left, barely kissing me goodbye. "I'll miss you," I said, hoping for some warmth. She just nodded, her eyes on her phone. I pushed the unease aside, focusing on the pitch. The meeting went well, and I was celebrating with a glass of bourbon in my hotel room when Rachel called. "I'm done, James," she said, her voice cold. "I've been seeing David Wells. He's better for me. I took our savings, $150,000, to start fresh with him. Don't try to find me." I felt the air leave my lungs, but I stayed calm. "We'll see who deserves better," I said, my voice steady. She laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Good luck with that," she replied, and hung up. I stared at the phone, her words echoing in my head. $150,000 gone. Our life, our plans, shattered. But I wasn't broken. I was focused. I called Tom immediately. "She left me for David Wells," I told him. "Took all our savings. What do you know?" Tom sighed. "I saw them together last month, James. At his office, then at a bar downtown. They were close." I didn't want to believe it, but I took photos just in case. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Send them to me," I said. "I'm coming home." I cut my trip short, driving back to Savannah that night, the Spanish moss on the oaks swaying in the moonlight as I pulled into our empty driveway. The house felt hollow without Rachel, her clothes gone, her photography gear missing, even the framed prints we'd hung together. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Tom's photos on my phone. Rachel and David laughing at a bar, his arm around her, her hand on his chest. The timestamps matched her supposed work meetings. I clenched my jaw, anger mixing with resolve. She thought she could take everything and start over with my rival. She didn't know I'd make her regret it. The next morning I called my lawyer. Sarah Klein, a sharp divorce attorney I'd met through a client. Rachel left me for David Wells, I said. She took $150,000 from our joint account. I've got photos proving the affair and a witness, Sarah replied. We'll freeze the account today and file for divorce. We can also sue for theft of joint assets. I'll need those photos and any financial records you have. I sent her everything. Tom's. Photos, bank statements, screenshots of the transfer Rachel had made. Good, Sarah said. This is solid. We'll make her pay. That evening I drove through downtown Savannah, passing David's office on Bull Street. His sign, Wells Realty, glowed. In neon, a taunt in the twilight. I knew he'd been after my clients for years, undercutting my listings, spreading rumors about my reliability. Now he'd taken my wife, my money, my life. But I wasn't done. Tom had seen them together, and I had proof of their affair. I'd expose David for the fraud I suspected he was, take back what was mine, and make Rachel regret the day she chose him over me. Thursday morning, I sat in my Savannah home office staring at the photos Tom had sent me of Rachel and David Wells together at a bar downtown. The images were a gut punch, her laughter, his arm around her, the timestamps proving she'd lied about her work meetings for months. She'd left me for my biggest rival while I was on a business trip in Charleston, taking $150,000 from our joint account to start a new life with him. But I wasn't defeated. I was focused. Rachel thought she'd get away with it, and David thought he'd finally beaten me in the real estate game. They didn't know I had a witness, and I was ready to make them regret it. I called Sarah, my lawyer, to check on the account freeze. It's done, she said. The bank froze the $150,000 Rachel transferred. She can't touch it until the investigation's complete. I've also filed for divorce and requested an injunction to stop her from accessing any. More of your assets? I nodded. Good. What's next? Sarah replied. We'll sue for theft of joint assets and emotional distress. With Tom's photos and your financial records, we've got a strong case. I've also looked into David Wells. He's got a history. 3 clients filed complaints last year for misrepresentation in sales. We can use that. I smiled. Perfect. I want to hit him where it hurts. That afternoon, I drove to Tom's workshop. On the edge of town, the smell of sawdust and paint filling the air. He was sanding a piece of oak for a renovation when I walked in. Thanks for the photos, I said, handing him a coffee. They're exactly what I needed. Tom nodded, wiping his hands on his apron. I'm sorry, James. I should have told you sooner. I just didn't want to believe it. I shook my head. You did the right thing. I need more, though. Have you seen them since? Tom sighed. Yeah. Yesterday, at the farmer's market on Liberty Street. They were holding hands, laughing, like they didn't have a care in the world. I took more photos. He sent them to me, and I clenched my jaw as I scrolled through. Rachel and David sharing a peach, oblivious to the storm I was brewing. I knew David's game. He'd been undercutting me in Savannah's real estate market for years, poaching clients with flashy promises and shady deals. Now he'd taken my wife, my money, my life, thinking he'd finally won. But I had a plan. The Savannah Real Estate Association was hosting a conference next week, a big event where agents networked with developers and investors. David would be there, showing off his new venture, likely funded with my money. I'd confront him there, in front of everyone, with Tom's testimony and the evidence of his shady past. I'd take back what was mine and make Rachel regret choosing him. Friday morning I met with Sarah at her office on Broughton Street, the heart of Savannah's historic district. She reviewed the new photos from Tom, nodding. These are solid. James, she said, they prove the affair, and with the financial records, we can show she planned this with David. I've also got a private investigator digging into his deals. He's got a history of misrepresentation, sold a property last year with undisclosed flood damage, cost the buyer $50,000 in repairs. I nodded. Can we use that at the conference? Sarah smiled. Absolutely. If we can get a few of his clients to speak up, it'll ruin him. I felt a surge of anticipation. Let's do it. That afternoon, I reached out to a former client, Emily Harris, who'd bought a property through David 2 years ago. I'd heard she'd had issues with the sale. I met her at a cafe near the river, the Savannah breeze carrying the scent of marsh grass. "Emily," I said, "I need your help. David Wells stole my wife and my savings. I know he screwed you over on that house on Abercorn Street. Will you speak at the real estate conference next week? Tell everyone what he did?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "He sold me a house with a cracked foundation," she said. "Lied about the inspection. I lost $30,000 fixing it. I'll speak, James. He deserves to be exposed." Saturday morning, I drove past David's office on Bull Street, his neon sign glowing in the daylight. A banner out front read, "Wells Realty, New Ventures coming soon." A slap in the face, knowing my money had funded it. I parked a block away, watching as Rachel walked out, her arms full of files, David trailing behind her. They were laughing, planning their future with my savings. I clenched the steering wheel, anger mixing with resolve. I'd let them enjoy their moment. Next week, I'd take it all away. That evening, I sat with Tom at a bar on River Street, the Savannah River glittering under the stars. He raised his beer, his face serious. "You're doing the right thing, James," he said. "Rachel doesn't deserve you, and David's a snake." I nodded, sipping my drink. "I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing it for everyone he's screwed over," Tom smiled. "That's why I've always got your back." He handed me a USB drive. More photos from last week. They were at his house on Tybee Island. "Looks like they're living it up." I took the drive, feeling the weight of the evidence in my hand. "Thanks, Tom. See you at the conference." Sunday morning, I prepared my presentation for the conference. I compiled Tom's photos, Emily's statement, and the financial records showing Rachel's transfer. I also included Sarah's findings on David's misrepresentation complaints, along with public records of his disputes. I wasn't just going to expose their affair. I was going to expose David as a fraud, ruin his reputation, and take back my money. I practiced my speech, keeping my tone steady, my facts clear. I'd confront them in front of Savannah's real estate community, where David's charm wouldn't save him. Monday afternoon, Sarah called with an update. "The injunction's in place," she said. "Rachel can't touch the money, and I've got 2 more of David's clients willing to speak at the conference. One lost $40,000 on a property he sold with termite damage he didn't disclose. The other was overcharged on commissions. They're ready to bury him." I smiled, feeling the pieces come together. "Good. I'll see you at the conference." I hung up, looking out at the oak trees lining my street, their moss swaying in the breeze. Rachel and David thought they'd won, living it up with my money, laughing at my expense. They didn't know I was coming for them, and I'd make sure they regretted every second of their betrayal. Tuesday morning, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Savannah Real Estate Conference, the air buzzing with agents, developers, and investors, sipping coffee and networking. I was there for one reason: to expose David Wells as the fraud he was, and take back what he and Rachel had stolen from me. My wife had left me for my rival while I was on a business trip, taking $150,000 from our joint account to fund his new venture. But I had witnesses, evidence, and a plan. As David took the stage to pitch his latest project, I stepped forward, my voice steady. "I have something to say," I announced. The room went silent, and I knew it was time to make them regret it. David froze mid-sentence, his charming smile faltering as he saw me. "What's this about, Carter?" he demanded, his tone sharp. I ignored him, turning to the crowd. "David Wells stole my wife and my savings to fund this venture," I said, holding up Tom's photos. "These show him with Rachel, my wife, while I was away on a business trip. They plan to start a new life with my money, $150,000 she took from our joint account." The crowd murmured, and David's face turned red. "That's a lie," he shouted. I stayed calm, handing the photos to a nearby developer. "There's more," I said. "David has a history of fraud." Emily Harris stepped forward, her voice clear. David sold me a house with a cracked foundation 2 years ago, she said. He lied about the inspection, cost me $30,000 in repairs. Another client, Mark Thompson, spoke up. He overcharged me on commissions, nearly $20,000, and refused to refund it. Sarah, my lawyer, handed out copies of public records, 3 complaints against David for misrepresentation in sales, all documented. The crowd's murmurs turned to gasps, and David's composure crumbled. "This is a setup," he yelled. But the investors in the front row were already whispering, pulling out their phones to cancel deals. I turned to Rachel, who stood at the edge of the stage, her face pale. "You thought you could take everything," I said. "But you picked the wrong man. The bank froze the money, and I'm suing you for theft. You'll get nothing." She started to cry, but I felt no pity. She'd made her choice, and now she'd face the consequences. The conference organizer escorted David off the stage, his reputation in tatters, as the crowd turned away from him. I'd exposed him, and I wasn't done. That afternoon, Sarah called with an update. "The investors pulled out of David's venture," she said. "He's lost everything. His new project, his credibility. He's facing lawsuits from multiple clients. Now, when the police are looking into his finances for fraud, Rachel's been served with the divorce papers and the theft lawsuit. She's offering a settlement. She'll waive any claim to your assets if you drop the charges." I thought about it, then nodded. "I'll take the settlement," I said. "I just want her out of my life." Sarah agreed. "Done. You've got your money back, and she's got nothing." Over the next week, the fallout continued. David's office on Bull Street shut down, the neon sign gone, replaced by a for-lease notice. I heard he'd moved to Atlanta, trying to start over, but his name was poison in the real estate world now. Rachel moved in with her sister in Macon, working odd jobs to make ends meet. Her photography career stalled after the scandal. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. They'd lost everything. Their money, their dreams, their reputation, while I was just getting started. I used the $150,000 to open Carter Realty, a new agency in Savannah focused on historic properties and community impact. I set up shop on Abercorn Street, a cozy space with exposed brick and a big window overlooking the oak-lined street. I hired Tom as my contractor, partnering with local nonprofits to renovate homes for low-income families. We offered free workshops for first-time buyers, teaching them how to navigate the market, something David never cared about. Within 3 months, Carter Realty had a dozen listings, all sold at fair prices, and the community rallied around us. A local paper ran a story, "Savannah Agent Rebuilds After Betrayal, Helps Families Find Homes," and I framed it, hanging it on my office wall. 6 months later, Carter Realty was thriving. We'd sold 20 properties, donated 10% of our profits to housing charities, and hosted a block party in Forsyth Park to thank the community. I stood at the event, watching kids play under the oaks, their parents laughing over lemonade, and felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Tom clapped me on the shoulder, a grin on his face. "You did good, James," he said. "This is what Savannah needed." I nodded, sipping my coffee. It's what I needed, too. That evening, I walked through the historic district, the gas lamps casting a warm glow on the cobblestones. I passed the spot where Rachel and I had our first date, a bench by the fountain in Columbia Square. I sat down, pulling out a photo from our early days, us smiling, her head on my shoulder, the future bright. I didn't hate her anymore. I felt sorry for her. She'd thrown away everything for a man who'd never cared about her, who'd used her just like he used everyone else. I tore the photo in half, letting the pieces fall into the fountain, watching them drift away in the water. I thought about David, too, but not with anger. He'd tried to destroy me, to take my wife, my money, my life, because he couldn't beat me fairly. But he'd lost everything, while I'd built something better. Carter Realty wasn't just a business, it was a testament to what I'd overcome, a way to give back to the city I loved. Rachel and David thought they'd won when they betrayed me, but they'd only made me stronger, more determined, more connected to the people who mattered. As I walked home, the stars twinkling above the oaks, I felt a lightness I hadn't in years. Some betrayals break you, but others show you what you're capable of, who you can trust, what really matters. Rachel thought she'd left me with nothing, but she'd given me everything. A new start, a new purpose, a new legacy. I didn't need her regret to feel whole. I had Savannah, my community, my work, and as the city whispered around me, I knew I'd come out on the right side of the deal, my future brighter than ever.